Inquiry-based learning is often misunderstood and confused with approaches like project-based or problem-based learning. But while they share similarities, IBL is distinct in placing students' active meaning-making at the center of the learning process. My name is Adilia Galamova, and in this video, we will be discussing 8 key myths that often arise when teachers approach IBL, and we will bust them together. So let's clear up these myths one by one. This is a common misunderstanding. While hands-on activities and research projects can be part of inquiry-based learning, they are not the whole story. Inquiry is more than experiments or research papers. It's a mindset. Inquiry is grounded in curiosity. It starts with students asking real questions, questions that matter to them, and continues as they explore, investigate, and reflect on what they're learning. A research project might involve gathering facts, but true inquiry digs deeper. It's embedded throughout classroom learning, encouraging students to constantly ask, what do we need to know and how can we find out? In an IBL classroom, inquiry becomes a habit of mind or a sustained way of thinking and learning that builds metacognition and supports lifelong learning. It's true that inquiry starts with a question, usually something students are genuinely curious about. But inquiry is more than simply asking questions. At the heart of inquiry is questioning with purpose. Questions like why, so what, how, these drive the learning process forward. The goal is to ask, make meaning, connect new ideas with existing knowledge, and develop deeper understanding. That said, we can't assume students are automatically ready to inquire. Many are used to being told what to learn, and when faced with open-ended exploration, they can feel lost or frustrated. This is where our role as teachers becomes vital. Early on, we guide students by modeling good questions, by scaffolding their thinking, and by encouraging persistence when things are unclear. Over time, as students build the concepts and confidence to ask meaningful questions, they begin to lead their own learning. But here is something critical to understand. We learn only what our questions allow us to learn. Students interpret new information through their existing beliefs and experiences. If they're not asking questions or not the right ones, they may filter out what they can't make sense of. Inquiry helps students push past those filters. It challenges them to engage with new ideas, connect content to their lives, and make meaning through discussion, analysis, and reflection. That is why inquiry shifts the focus from right answers to understanding. This also means helping students become comfortable with ambiguity and tolerate uncertainty. That's part of nurturing lifelong learners. So yes, inquiry involves questions, but more importantly, it involves meaning-making, student agency, and active engagement with content, each other, and the world. This is one of the most persistent myths about inquiry, and one that puts a lot of pressure on teachers. The truth? Inquiry doesn't require us to know all the answers. Actually, it works best when we are willing to admit we don't. Students often expect teachers to be the source of all knowledge. It's what they're used to. And when we don't deliver that traditional teacher knows everything experience, they might question our competence. This can feel unsettling for students, especially those who find security in clear guidance and right answers. But here's the shift. In inquiry-based learning, the teacher is not a teller, and the student is not a receiver. As Norman Johnson put it, there is no teller-receiver, adult-child, or teacher-client relationship in real inquiry. Students bring their own perspectives, experiences, and insights, and these are valuable contributions to the learning process. Yes, many students resist this at first. They're used to being passive recipients of information. That is why inquiry can be uncomfortable. It challenges their learned dependency. We as teachers might also feel insecure if we can't provide instant answers, or if we are unsure where a student question might lead. Confidence in inquiry teaching grows from trusting the process rather than knowing every answer. Confidence comes from knowing how to support the learning, how to formulate questions, guide data collection, support interpretation, and help students construct meaning. It comes from being organized, curious, and willing to say, let's find out together. Of course, subject knowledge matters. We need a solid grasp of content and inquiry skills, but just as importantly, we need flexibility, patience, and the courage to embrace uncertainty alongside our students. When we model that mindset, when we show that it's okay not to know everything, we create a classroom culture where inquiry thrives. Many teachers, especially those newer to inquiry, feel more secure when following a set sequence. Pose a question, gather data, analyze, conclude, and reflect. And while that structure can be helpful, true inquiry is not a rigid recipe. If every inquiry experience follows the same predictable pattern, things can get monotonous for you and your students. Inquiry should be dynamic, flexible, and responsive to the needs of your learners and the realities of your classroom. While inquiry often starts with a student-generated question or problem, it doesn't have to. If time is tight or if the context calls for it, you might begin by introducing a relevant issue or even a theory from an expert and ask students to evaluate whether the evidence supports it. That theory becomes the problem and the inquiry is still alive and meaningful. The key is this: inquiry is not about the steps, it's about thinking. Students can enter the process at different points. Some might start by analyzing data, others might begin with a problem they are passionate about, and others might engage through interpreting a historical or scientific theory. By varying the flow and approach, we keep things fresh and engaging, and also help students develop a wider range of inquiry skills. So instead of asking, am I following the correct sequence, a better question might be, are my students engaged in meaningful thinking? Are they making connections and constructing understanding? That's the heart of inquiry. Those were 4 common myths about inquiry-based learning. In part 2, I will unpack 4 more. Check the link in the description. Thank you for watching. Subscribe so you don't miss my upcoming videos, and leave a comment if you have ever encountered or believed any of these myths in your own teaching practice. Happy inquiring!